They call 5 stages of grief, but through my training, my study, I discovered there were more than five. There are five prevalent ones, but I got seven that I'm going to hopefully get to today. But these are the difference of individuals who have a dot that represent where they are and what they experience. What do you want to say?
I was going to say that not connecting the dots for believers could cause us to be out of character of who we are as believers.
Yeah.
It sometimes it will cause us to be where we're supposed to reach, we won't reach. We will become selfish. We can become angry like this. I see anger, but we strike at people that we should help. You know, as believers, we have characteristics and we have things about us that God says that we are by way of the Holy Spirit. Just from the character of who God is in us, there's a way that we ought to be, and the world ought to see us, so that we can be a light. But without being, without connecting the dots or having understanding of what we're dealing with, we can be out of character. We can find ourselves acting out of character. We can find ourselves striking people. Because when I'm angry, you know, anger is out of control. Anger is out of control. You know, if you don't put a handle on it, you can be angry, but if you don't put a handle on it, that's the part where he says, be angry, but sin not. That's where we fall into the sin. You made me angry, put my hands on you. See, we ain't supposed to put hands on folk like that. But if you don't put a control on it, if you don't get an understanding, we will strike. And most of the time we strike close to home, each other, family, children. You know, sometimes your children, they got whippings that they weren't supposed to get. You weren't dealing with this thing right. And so the child gets the anger, or the husband or the wife gets the anger because you're not dealing with the dot connection. There's something else there that's fueling this thing that you haven't taken the time to deal with. And so we're out of character. I'm not showing forth the light that's in me. And the Holy Spirit, a lot of times, is speaking to us, you know, because I remember the Holy Spirit speaking to me. And sometimes we don't hear the Holy Spirit. We only feel our grief. We only feel our hurt. I know some people who only feel their pain only. They don't know how to feel the pain of another person. They only feel their hurt, their pains, their disappointments, and they only soothe themselves.
Yes.
But that's not the character of God. And when you see that kind of action, that kind of movement, then you got to know it's something else going on, because the Spirit of God is not selfish. The Spirit of God is not self-centered. That's correct. It thinks of others. It considers others.
Yes.
And when you have that, when that's missing in a person, see, sometimes we think, oh, you need a prophetic. No, you just need to see the signs. You know, I don't have to use prophetic gifting to see someone's out of character.
Yes.
You know, when you can't, because see, things come and happen. You know, I have feelings, but I can't let my feelings override what the Spirit of the Lord is saying. I have feelings, but like he says, I have dominion over everything, to include my feelings. So when my feelings want me to be out of character due to what I'm dealing with, then what I have to do is I have to now go to what I know. The Spirit of the Lord has taught me. The Spirit of the Lord has what's been engraved in my heart, the Word of God. So I pull from that place to now respond and react, as opposed to letting my grief, my anger, and what's going on, the fruit from those things, cause me to get out of character.
In the book of Job, chapter 1, verse 1, and I'm going to go to verse 18 and 19. Job chapter 1, verse 1 says, in this amplified verse, there was a man in the land of Oz whose name was Job, not Job, Job. And that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God. I mean, he reverenced God, and abstained from and turned away from evil, because he honored God. Now let's go down to the last verse, which is verse 18 and 19. It says, while he was still speaking, another messenger also came and said, your sons and your daughter were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind came from across the desert and struck the four corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they died. And I alone have escaped to tell you. And verse 20 says, Then Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head in mourning for the children, and he fell to the ground and worshiped. He said, Naked, without possession, I came in this world from my mother's womb, and naked I will return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In spite of his situation, Job still give God praise. Now, I want y'all to remain here just for a moment. In the book of Job, the whole books of Job is 42 chapters. Chapter 1, there's a conversation that is happening in the heavens. The Bible said the sons of God present themselves alone. Satan came also. It says the son, which are the angels. Satan is a fallen angel. He's no longer identified as an angel anymore. He is Satan. He has his own identity now outside of the angels' realm. So God says, where's that coming from? And he said, I come from being in the earth, walking to and fro in the earth. And then Job is now being in a unfortunate yet situation where he's a righteous man, loves God, reverences God, and yet God allows a tragedy to strike Job home. And Job, in the midst of all he's going through, he still blesses God. Now, that's beginning.
That's the remembering what he knows.
Yes.
I'm sure his grief, his anguish, the pain of the loss of his children were there, the feeling.
Okay.
But Job's response was from what he knew about God.
Okay.
He didn't respond from a place of feeling. And so I think even with your part that you mentioned last week about Job's wife.
Yes.
And how this is what Job did with husbands, listen, this is what Job did. The wife, when she spoke from a place of feeling.
Yes.
You know, we've lost all this. We lost our children. Why don't you just curse God and die? And Job might have felt the same pain that she was feeling about the loss. But this is where the husband has to snap it back into the mind of the wife.
Yes.
Don't go on this feeling.
Yeah.
What do we know?
Yeah.
He spoke to her. He spoke to her. The husbands, when your wife get out of pocket, and in the midst of anguish, we can.
Yeah.
In the midst of pain, we can. And I'm not just saying this on a woman to
it's man to woman.
I'm just saying between the two of you, somebody got to remember what did God say.
Yeah.
Go back to what we know and what God says, and don't roll with the feelings, because the feelings will have us curse God and die.
And this is where we get people to be angry with God.
Yeah.
Because again, in my profession, as a pastor and as a chaplain, the first thing when I deal with the patient is, where are they in their emotion? And every now and then someone will say, well, I'm angry. I'm angry with God. And no one ever said they're angry with the devil. Only angry with God. Yeah. And then what I have to do is hear the whole matter. I have to apply the scripture, hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Don't jump in, don't interrupt, allow the person to say what they got to say. When a person is grieving, the reason people grieve longer than they have to in a certain situation is because they haven't been given the liberty to express what they feel.
Right.
Express what you feel don't mean you're going to hell. It's this way I feel.
Right.
God is big enough to handle your feelings.
Right. But we can't allow people to, we can allow them to release that thing that makes you sick. You know, I always say you got to purge. Get that thing up out of you. Say it, what you got to say. But at the end of the day, your movement has to be in alignment with God. Yeah. And so grief can cause you to move differently. And I'm going to bring another person into this, and that's Noah.
Yes.
Noah had great grief. You know, we talk about how Noah was, drunk. And we always, people always talk about him in a very negative way. But if you think about the magnitude of what Noah had been assigned. He was the lead person
Mm-hmm.
to be on a vessel
The trailblazer.
that only 8 people would survive. You had to know that Noah had family,
Yes, friends.
that friends that did not get, that at some point may have come to that vessel and said, let me in.
Yeah.
There were children. He had to have nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles. He had to have cousins that at the end of the day were all lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for him to get to the other side and realize all of my family is gone, except for the 7 that I have with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a boat, but I only put animals on. I didn't save nobody else. To think and not understand his grief on why he might
goes
try
beyond religion.
Goes beyond religion. And this is why sometimes we have to be in the place where we can help people in the grieving process, because he went to drinking. He went to so when you see movement from a believer that's out of character, you got to go to them. You got to see what it is that's got them in the place that they are in, out of character, because that wasn't his character.
And that's why Jesus said, judge not, that you not be judged. With the same measure you judge someone else, you have to be judged on that same measure.
Right.
So when it comes down to the grief, especially believers, and especially in the black church, because in our culture, we don't normally deal with this. We come to church with a good hip and a high and go home and still got the same issues, just had a high, good time at church. But when you leave the church, that pain that you came in with, you pick that pain back up when you get out the door, because their subject matter has not been addressed. So here we got all these different situations. These are the dots. I want each one of you to tell me what is, you wrote your particular one. What is that to you, your grief in that area? No matter who wants to start. And let's kind of be brief based on our time. Come this way in front of the camera so we can be in camera view.
All right. So my word was emptiness.
Okay.
So I chose emptiness because I lost my grandpa a while ago, and I wasn't in Christ at that time. So when I first heard about it, we were in the hospital. He was sick. He died from like heart problems. So when I first heard about it, everyone else around me, I just remember everyone else around me was crying. And the last thing he told me was, be a good boy. And I gave him a hug, and then I went into the lobby, and then everyone was crying. And then next thing I knew, my mom gave me a hug, and I just knew that he was gone. But I didn't feel anything towards him. I didn't, because I always helped him. I always did favors for him, and I loved him. But I didn't. When he passed, I didn't feel anything. And it wasn't until I think a couple years later, a girl at my school passed away from heart problems as well. And I remember being in the car and crying. And my mom asked me why I was crying. I was like, that reminds me of my grandpa, because he died of heart problems. And I also wish that I got to, spend a lot more time with him as well.
And that what we define as delayed grief. That means the grief was delayed to be processed. And then along with the delayed grief, you have what we call the guilt. That means I wish I had did, even though you have done. And when anytime there's a person that have a loss, they always go to some of the 7 stages of grief. One is the grief, means the guilt. Feel like I should have did more. It should have been me. Just it's a whole lot of thing goes on, but that's part of the process. Thank you so much. Next.
Mine was anger for my mom and regret for my dad. My mom passed away of cancer, and towards the end of her life, it was really painful for her. So I really didn't grieve her until maybe about 6 months before she left, because I had all the visions of her suffering. And I remember going to church one Sunday and looking up in the choir stand and seeing all of her friends. And I became so angry with God. And I kept saying, why, God? I need my mom. Why did it have to be her? And I was just in a terrible place with my anger. I stopped going to church. Didn't go to church for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And with my dad, he had health problems, and every morning I would fix his medication. My dad died of a massive heart attack. And for months, I thought that it was my fault because I couldn't remember fixing him his medication. And it wasn't until Vern told me, no, you did fix his medication. So I lived with that regret, thinking that my dad had a heart attack because I didn't give him his medication.
Next.
Mine was shock because I remember cleaning up. It was on a Saturday, cleaning up like I normally do. And but I noticed that the day was just something strange about the day. I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just something strange about the day. And then my daughter, she calls me. She said, "Mama, have you heard what happened to Tiffany?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Tiffany, someone is saying that Tiffany is dead." I said, "What are you talking about? That's not true. That can't be it." So we trying to figure out what's going on and everything. And then, I go about my, just going about my normal cleaning, what have you. And then my sister calls me from the hospital, and then she gives me the news. And just right then, it's like, I just can't believe it. It's just like in shock, because we never heard about, Tiffany having any issues or anything like that. And then to be told that you just lost a loved one, it just took us all by surprise. So I was just in total shock.
Okay.
And still to this day, I still have a hard time with it because it's just hard to fathom.
Which one did you write? You
I'm
were shocked.
shocked,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Okay, thank you so
So
much.
it's just hard.
Yes, ma'am. Just pass to the next person.
My word was sporadic, and I think the best way is the year that my dad died. We were in the pandemic. This is 2020. So before my dad died, I lost my job due to COVID. My dad died a month later, and then a couple of months later, I went through a divorce. And so at the time, and even now, I don't think I ever really had opportunity to grieve in each individual situation. So it just kind of comes and goes throughout my life. Depending on the trigger, it can be a statement, it can be a song that comes on the radio, it can be anything. Like last Sunday, I was telling you when you was talking about, you were going to be talking about grief. I didn't even think I was going to be triggered like I was. But I was so overwhelmed. That's why I had to text Miss Tammy because I couldn't even go to Miss Pat's surprise party because I was so overwhelmed. And so it's just being okay with it coming and going and just dealing with all different things, one thing at a time.
Okay. Now, while we go to the next person, please understand grief is a process. It just doesn't come and go. It's stages to it. It's phases to it. Technically, you never stop grieving. You just learn to cope, adapt to the where you are, but the grieving never stops. It just don't be as grievous as it originally was. The shock, the delay. See, once you start connecting the dots and we understand our triggers, then you start recognizing when these things come about. Like when holiday come, people say, "Well, I hate Christmas. I hate Thanksgiving. I hate. For me, it was Valentine's Day because my mom died on Valentine's Day. So I had a hatred." Meaning not so much a hatred. I didn't like that time because everyone else be celebrating while I'm feeling the pain. But not realizing they got pain also. It just displayed differently. Yes.
For me, it was loneliness, and I wrote that one because, when you lose someone like a matriarch of the family or
Yeah.
a patriarch, you lose a part of you. So my grandmother passed away a couple of years ago, right before COVID. And then my mom passed away right before I had my daughter.
Mm.
And you don't really think about it. So any major events or like birthdays, giving birth, marriage, I have a huge outburst.
Mhm.
And everybody always trying to figure out why or like where it triggered from. And I didn't really realize it until last week when I was like, my birthday is on Thanksgiving. It was on Thanksgiving this year. So I just kind of wanted to be to myself, and I was just really lonely, but I really missed my brothers. And it's like a sense of protection that is removed from your family. when people pass like that, and I don't like, that was one for me. So that's why I put loneliness.
Okay, good stuff. And again, thank you all for your courage to share. I really appreciate this. Yes, ma'am. And yours?
Mine was anger. My anger was toward my dad. My dad left when I was 8 years old, and he died when I was maybe 46. But my dad never left the area where we lived at. He still stayed in the same town. But he never, I may have saw him maybe 6 times during that period that before he died. And I was angry because I'm like, why didn't he reach out to my brother and my sister? Why didn't he try to build a relationship with us? My mom never dogged him out to us. Whatever happened between my mom and dad, that was between them, not between the whole us and the kids. And so I was just angry with him. I said, okay, when we were kids, we were kids. But then I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm grown now. My dad never asked me for my phone number. He never asked me for my address. Why? And I wasn't only angry at my dad, I was angry with his whole side of the family. We go to the funeral because I started not to go. And I see a whole side from the front row all the way back to the door, family. But these people, I still get a little emotional about it.
It's okay.
They were never there for us. I was like, what did we do to y'all? At 8 years old, I was supposed to get on a bus and go across the city trying to find y'all. Some of y'all adults, older than me. Why weren't y'all there for us? And I feel like I thought about it a little while ago, and I was like, maybe I should have reached out to, because before my dad died, years before, I kept thinking maybe I need to reach out to him, invite him over to bring him down here to where I live at. So it could have I could have also stepped up as an adult and went and tried to build a relationship with him too. Because it ain't always on one person, because maybe he felt bad because he wasn't there for us,
Okay. That would come in the category of bargaining. You're trying bargaining, like you're trying to, and the regret also. Feel like maybe if I done this, and maybe the family would have done this. See, that's part of the grief. That's how we are connecting the dots. Yes, darling.
I put void, and
Okay.
when my dad died, I was 8 months pregnant with my son AJ, and so I can remember being, when he died, they took me. I was pregnant, so they took me from the hospice house where he was, and immediately took me to the hospital so I can be sedated. So a lot of when it first happened, because I was pregnant and they didn't really want me to get, I was sedated, and I really didn't have that initial reaction to grief. It almost like I was numb. And so after then, I have AJ, and then I deal with postpartum depression. And I'm still not necessarily grieving my dad, but when I got the opportunity to start really grieving him sometime later, I just feel a void. Like like I said, I was a daddy's girl, and it's just like I can't get another biological father. I can't, those things, the way that he would encourage me and stuff like that, the things that you hear from a parent, or you want to hear from a parent, or giving birth or getting married, I just have that void because he's not there.
Okay.
Well, mine I put confused. It was like total of 5 different situations. First, when my brother was killed. Then I had 2 very close friends who passed due to their military commitment. I had a close friend of mine who passed in his sleep, and then my grandson. So although I never spoke out loud, asking God why, I know he allows things and things are permissible. So I was always in the lost mind of why them, because they were great people. So that's why I'm still saying at times, just trying to figure out what the whys were, what could have done differently to allow them to still be here.
Which comes in the category of bargaining.
Yes.
You're trying to figure out why. And when it comes to, and listen to this part, come on, son. Mind, tell us you put depression, correct? Depressed, talk about it.
So I put the depression because I basically like almost like half my life I lost like some good people like during my life, and it made me sad. It made me like and deep inside made me get angry, frustrated, and I took and and I'm just wondering in my head why? Why did the good people that I know gotta go on gotta go and and I just I just want to live, though I want them to live longer for them to see me grow, be there.
I appreciate it. It was a hand clap real quick. Now, every individual have boldly shared their grief, and it's very rewarding. The question would be now, because we talk past, present, can't talk future because you're not there. Compared to the past and compared to the present, where are you with this grief? Does that question make sense? Okay.
I resonate very well when you say it's a journey, because
Yes.
some years I'm okay,
Mhm.
you know, during the holidays or by Father's Day or whatever. And then some years I'm just like
Tore.
toe up,
Yeah.
like it just happened yesterday. So that's why I can say it's not a destination. It's it's a journey. It's some years I'm good and some it's not. Oh, it's been 5 years, so no.
Okay. Yes.
There are mountains and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
I get.
I was gonna say I'm okay with the highs and the lows of it. And I'm very transparent and open about the highs and the lows of it. If let's say my sister Demetrius calls me and it's just not a good day, I don't try to be that strong individual. I just tell her I don't have it. I don't have the capacity. I talk to my mom, who's / my counselor at the same time. I have conversations with her processing. And I think that's what I was trying to get to with the sporadic. I just process it on a regular basis, because during the time I was so having to do things and still having to, maintain and raise my children. I didn't have time to take the ways. And so I just take my time with it. I take my time with it, and it's not a rush. When it's a good day, it's a good day. When it's a bad day, it's a bad day. Try to show my children how to navigate in those good, in those bad, and not necessarily take my anger. I'm not angry, but I don't want them to feel my frustration. So it's a learning process for me. And then I also try to show that to my children, how to navigate it, because I know they have their own experience of grief.
So why the tears?
Because I also feel other people.
That's it.
That's just me. And I'm listening to my son and knowing when he goes through on a regular basis, I'm listening to my sister. And so, I just feel people. Although I'm grieving, I still grieve with my brothers and my sisters and my family.
What I want you to learn today is do your own process and let them have theirs. Empathize and sympathize with
Right.
them, but don't process them.
Right.
See, what happened to a lot of people, we start processing other folks' situation and we haven't processed our own. But you can bear witness with that person. You can encourage them. Because sometimes encourage others when you grieve, it helps you. That's a good thing. So practice that, but don't eternalize other folks' grief, because it would just set you back. And the thing about grief is we're trying to make progress. We're not trying to run from it. We're just trying to make progress in where we are, because it's never going to stop. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say too, I don't often hear my son
Yeah.
process. So as a mother, to hear that. I'm an empathetic person.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily taking in everybody, but I'm a crybaby.
Yeah. I'm keen of it. Yes.
It wasn't until I came here about 8.5 years ago, but I remember that you would have, and I don't know if you had everybody doing this,
Process
but
notes.
the process notes, and
Yeah.
it was about 3 questions, and that taught me coping mechanisms or whatever the process notes. And I just want to thank you for that, because I can remember being able to go through those questions and actually feel better
Yeah.
after I've done them.
The process note she's referenced to, I put together in my CPE training. It's called Clinical Pastoral Education. We learn about doing process note. And the process note would consist of 3 questions that our professor would ask her, and then I created my own. And those questions would relate to your week. Each day of the week for 7 days, starting day 1 would be Monday, and you go to, well, it would start Sunday, and then you go to the next Sunday, and then you come in with your information of what your day was like throughout the day. It's like a little personal journal. And what that would do, it would cause you to realize, to go back and reflect from where you started off and where you are to this phase of life. Yes, ma'am.
Just real quick on that, because this is the part where we end up responding incorrectly.
Yeah.
Is because we pretend that we're good.
Yeah.
You know, we're pretending, oh, I'm good. You know, but your actions, and this is why we got to watch actions, you know, because, well, you're saying you're good, but your actions are showing something else. And this is where we have to kind of go in and get family, you know, go in and get loved ones, go in and, because their response and their reactions are saying something different than what you are saying out of your mouth. And then I don't know why we think it's a weakness as believers to have grief. It takes nothing from us as believers to admit to pain, to admit to what we're feeling, what we're going through. You know, the thing is just, you know, strength is in numbers.
Yeah.
You know, I don't let my friends suffer like that. I don't. I just don't. I don't let my friends suffer like that. I don't let my family suffer like that. And I think that's why people say, you know, I'm their whatever counselor, you know, because I don't pretend. There is no gain in pretending to be anything. You know, deal with what we got to deal with. I always say, put the junk on the table, as ugly as it is.
Yeah.
And let's sift through it and get what's necessary out of it and scrape the rest of it off, and let's keep moving. You know, but that's my thing. And I think a lot of times we don't have better responses because we don't really deal with the root of what's going on.
Yeah. Now, how many of y'all have had a significant loss of someone or something, and someone told you, be strong? Just stand up. You heard that phrase, be strong. They want you to be strong. They want you to be strong. They didn't tell them that, but they tell you that they would want you to be strong. How many know that that's just foolishness? Strength and grief are not dealing with your pain is not strength. It can be the most destructive thing for a person, because now you've been pressured not to express what you're feeling or to show what you're feeling.
Right.
And when you can't show what you're feeling, at some point, it's going to come out some way. So when I see character, behavior, and difference in people acting, I immediately know, in my training, is they're grieving something.
And then you can see the anniversaries of it.
Yes.
You know, I have loved ones, family, friends. I can see the anniversaries of their grief. Every year it's the same thing. Every year is this response, this reaction, this movement, and you can tell. And you just give them space. You have to give them space, because until they are able to deal with what they're dealing with, their loss, whatever that loss is, you know, it's just going to be a repeat cycle of what it is. But I think the biggest thing is when you said about strength, when someone says, well, they want you to be strong. Well, they never tell you what that strong look like. What does that look like? Because somebody ever tell me, I'm saying, well, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what's that strength? What does that look like? Because it's a statement that we say, because really, I'm really having a hard time dealing with your tears, is what I'm saying. No, they want you to be strong, but I just don't want you to cry, because I don't want to deal with your crying right now. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's bothering me that you're crying.
And it also goes back to slavery, because when the slaves went through the transition of slavery, if one got killed based on not obeying the master, they had this mindset. They had to be strong. They'll show their weakness, their emotion, because they mean they're going to do more to them. So it's kind of become hereditary, becoming inherited, and you have to break that. So,
but it's only in words.
It's only words,
because it comes out in other ways.
Yes.
You know, it comes out sometimes when you don't deal with grief. you can appear to be mean.
A lot of our prisons are filled with grieved people.
Yeah.
Something has happened that has not been addressed, so they act out of character. So anytime I see someone acting out of character, there's a way you can help a person. If you know a person is grieving and you don't go to their aid, you're wrong. If you stay your distance, you're not up to par. Because if you know I'm going through something, don't ignore me. Because I say I'm good. And you know in heaven, hell, I'm not good. Don't be pretend that. Come and help me, because at this moment, I feel like my worst. I'm at my lowest. As a pastor, and I was in this preacher was preaching about people don't realize what pastors go through, how we had to process things. It's a grieving process. I don't wish to jump on nobody but JR. Because
You might well get right.
you might
Get right and learn.
as quick as possible. but this is real ministry here, because at the end of the day, they're gonna walk away with a little more information. You're gonna walk away with a little more information, because how many of y'all can relate to what they're saying here? It makes sense. It makes sense. Sir, what's your name? Okay. You stood up. What grief have you had? Okay. How old was your son? 6 months. 6 months or 12 years is still your son. So you can't put a number on it with some ignorant person. Well, they bet off. See, you don't tell people.
Or you can have more
You
children.
can have more children.
It's the most, but people don't know better sometimes. And so things like this, I thank God for you. I thank God for you. Because we can get up here, hoop and holler, and preach about Daniel in the lion den all day. But people have to live everyday living.
Yes, ma'am.
And dealing with grief and dealing with this type of everyday lifestyle has or should be taught and given. And so for that, we thank you for coming off grid and helping people as a pastor to deal with everyday living. And we appreciate you. While you yourself cope with your own grief, your own hurts, and your own pains. And so for that, we'll keep you lifted in prayer, sir, because we know that you too have your own thing. And I know you. I know when you triggered. I know when I just, Lord, give me strength. Let me help you. Keep on. I don't stop being a wife.
Yeah,
I give you space.
A lot of times when I'm grieving, I start fidgeting. I start doing
Fidgeting,
stuff,
get quiet.
moving, cooking.
Nikki like, what? Dad okay?
Yeah.
He all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I'm thankful for is that God equips us
Yes.
to do the job that you're given to do. So I always say God graces me, but he also ministers to me. And I think about my brother, Jesus Christ. I know y'all don't like to hear that, but that's what he is to me. He's my brother. My Lord, my Savior, my brother, because I'm joint heir.
Yeah.
But just like the Lord send ministering angels to Christ,
Yes.
he sends ministering angels to us
Yes.
because of the call on the life, the call on his life. He has to be ministered to. JR, don't worry. God will send ministering angels to you to help you deal and cope with what you have to do while helping others to deal and cope with what they have to do.
Yes, sir. I think someone's about to say something reference to the
Yeah.
question. Yes, sir.
It's going back to when you asked the question, where are you on your journey? I think with everyone, there's a time where they think they're taking 10 steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, something gives them 10 steps back.
It's a trigger.
And so you never have a real point of where you are in your journey. I was just thinking for myself, my brother was killed. Well, he was murdered. And so every time I see someone that's of teenage get shot in the streets, it triggers me. And so anytime I think about it, it's like, you know what? I can't even watch it on TV no more. I got to distance myself for a minute. I can't go to funerals too often because, like Dad said, I don't think about the person that's there. I think about who I lost.
Yeah.
I had some friends who passed recently. Everybody's like, everybody's going to meet up. I can't even go. Why? Because just stepping out there is going to break me. And then being that there's been many times where we should have got together and we didn't, brings more pain. And so there's no real spot of saying, I'm here on my journey. Because every year there's emotional landmines. birthdays, holidays,
Yeah.
moments that we shared, music that we hear. They hit and they knock you back.
And that's why we have to allow discernment to
Yes.
operate in our lives. When we come down to people, because you take Deontay. Is Deontay? How long ago when your son passed? 2013. It's like 23 between you right now. Regardless, it's been 10 years. I had one of my patients, caregivers, say to me, you know, it's been 20 years, and I'm still feeling this. But because you have helped me, I can now understand the dynamics. So it's never old to the person that have had the loss. Is if you are impatient, and a lot of times the impatient on that person who say the wrong thing is out of ignorance, I mean unlearned. So once you learn, you do better. So when people are grieving, when you see certain things happen to people, and everything about grieving is not about the actual death of a person, the loss, a divorce, going through divorce, facing divorce, anything that can trigger a setback is a trigger. So what we have to do is learn to adapt to people. Like, in other words, if you see me going into a dark place, and a dark place don't mean sin always,
Right.
mean that it's that seclusion, that isolation. Isolation is the last thing you want to do when you're grieving. You take my friend Elder Mike, Father Time, how and many times in his grieving, which at that time I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew he would go to different phases. We got to play, we wouldn't let him be at home by himself.
Right.
We said, man, come on, be with us. You know, he said, I'm good. Well, no, you're not good. We need your company.
Right.
And we will pull them out. Why? Because when you know a person is grieving and you know they're going through some depression, then it becomes your responsibility to reach out to them. Now, there may be some resistance from time to time, which is understandable, but that phone call, that text message makes a difference.
And that reminder, like I said, we have
You don't let me
feelings.
see it unless
but
you got something else to say.
If you
Yeah.
you have feelings, but
Help the ladies
you
out.
have
Okay,
to make
sure.
sure that the feelings are not the sole movement of the person.
Thank
In other words, I understand, like with Job's wife, and I understand your feelings. I get your
Yes.
feelings, but I can't let your feelings dictate to you what actually is. Like, I can't let you not be in the place where you don't hear God.
Yeah.
Feelings can allow you sometimes to be in a place where you don't hear God. You know, because somebody say, well, I'm hopeless. No, my hope is in Christ Jesus. Although my heart is hurting right now, I still have hope. I can't not have hope, because then I have nothing. So we have to remind people, sometimes you got to speak life to people. This is the stuff that even in the midst of their tears, I speak life to them. I say, but you have hope. And I know you've heard them right now. This is the time we embrace, we can hug, but I'm speaking in your ear. You have hope.
Yeah.
Christ Jesus is your hope. You know, and you don't let the feelings take the reins, so to speak.
That's good. That's good. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, my mom passed away in 1997. My dad passed away in 2007. And like I said, I really didn't grieve my mom for a long time because all I saw was her suffering. But once my dad passed away, all of the feelings that I had towards my mom came along with the grieving that I did for my dad. If anybody in here has lost both parents, life without parents is just a totally different thing. So all the time I would find myself in a place where I would just cry, you know, but I would cry, but I did want comfort. You know, when my husband saw me cry, he would baby me, but I needed to do that, you know, for myself. And even though I miss my parents every day, a lot of times it's not sad. There are times, years that have gone by, that I realize afterwards, oh, my mom's birthday was Thursday, or my dad's birthday. And there are some times when in Mother's Day and Father's Day when it, you know, comes in like a flood. But at the end of the day, I find myself in a place where I know I have to push forward, you know, and I have to do that on my own, you know, with the help of God. So a lot of times when you're grieving, You know, you give into it, give into your emotions, but at the end of that, you still have to get up and be strong and move forward. You know, a lot of times people say, well, your parents would want you to do this and your parents would want you to do that. Our parents wanted us to do a lot of stuff, but because we're left here without them, we have to do what we can do to move forward. And that's not saying that you don't forget them. That's not saying that you won't feel the loss sometimes, but you have to move forward. You can't just get stuck in that place where you're just feeling grief all the time.
That's absolutely true.
Good stuff.
It's just I don't know if I'm an Animal Kingdom
Mhm.
lover. I love to watch the Animal Kingdom, and if
7
anybody
stages of
would
grief.
watch the elephants,
Mhm.
they are very emotional beings, and in the falling of one of their own, they will stay for days and mourn that one that fell. They will stand
Yeah,
around
especially
and like
elephants.
if it's a baby or the mother of the baby, you know, they will stand and mourn that lost elephant for days.
Yeah.
And then the leader of the pack at some point will
Jump
get
in.
up and start to move forward, to move away and take the herd with them. And the one that's closest to it, if it's the mother mourning the loss of her calf, she may hesitate and linger a little longer than the rest of them, but eventually she gets up and she moves along with the rest of the herd. And that's kind of how grief is.
Yeah.
Grief is kind of in that way. It hurts, it's painful, and when people say be strong, it may be their thing is that we got to get up and keep moving. We can't stay here and die with the one. We have to get up, and life has to continue for us because grief can get you in a place where, like Kimmy said, I don't want to be comforted. But then on the other hand, somebody else says, that's all I want is comfort. So it's different with each person. He has to cater to her how she needs to help her. Another person, you know, me, when I'm sick, don't call me, don't talk to me, don't anything. Just leave me alone. Let me alone. I just want to be sick in this room with the lights off. And then other people, like my mother, bring her a bowl of soup, bring her a napkin, bring her with some water, bring her, you know, anything you can bring her, bring it to her. She's a different, that's her way of helping her.
Yeah.
So it's different with every person. There's no one way to cater. Just husband and wife, know your spouse. Know your children, you know, cater, don't dismiss kids. Because like Micah is expressing here, he has moments of depression. He's sad. All the people that I like and that like me, you know,
And hear
Or
the voice.
leave it.
Hear the voice of your children. Hear the voices.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna ask you all to post this on our website so people can go back and look at it. Let's cover the 7 stages of grief before and after loss. Number 1 is shock and denial. As those on the platform already discussed, that's feelings of shock and denial are unavoidable in nearly every situation, even if you foresee it happening. So you know it's going to happen, but it's still a shock factor. Knowing not it's going to happen is a shock factor. Expecting it to happen, and when it happens, it's a shock factor. So somebody give me some water. So at the end of the day, in this shock and denial, meaning it happened, but you're in denial that it happened. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this really happened. And the truth is, it happened, but for the person that's experiencing it, it's the second thing. Do number 2 for me.
Number 2, pain and guilt. Once the shocks wear off, feelings of pain, guilt, accepting, and the best try to accept these feelings. It's best to try to accept. The thing about pain and guilt is that afterwards we try to find blame.
Yeah.
We want to lay this pain somewhere. A lot of times with death or divorce or loss of a job,
Well,
it's hard for us to deal with what we're dealing with. So we try to lay that thing somewhere. If I put it here, I'll feel better. If I say this is what, if I put it over here, this will make me more. It's not. No matter where you lay it, the loss is the loss. It's there. And so this is just a part of it. You can see the cycling, pain and guilt. And when we're in pain or we have guilt, we have a tendency to act out of character or we may be a little more reserved in some cases. In other cases, you could be a little bit more, snappy. You ever know people that are in grieving? They have a tendency to be less patient. A patient person now is impatient.
Yeah.
A person with few words now seems to be talking, or vice versa. So pain and guilt is one of those processes.
And the thing about the guilt is that these are part of the process of grieving, of grief. Is the guilt may be, I wish I had did more. That's / regret. Or you should have done more, but you didn't do more. You should have took them to the doctor, but you didn't take them. You should have visited them and you didn't visit them. So it's a guilt / regret. It's all part of the process. And in that part of that process, you learn to say, you know what, God, if I could do it again, see, that's the bargain, I would do it differently. And remember, grief also starts at the announcement of a terminal illness. Imagine you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you got X amount of months or years left to live. That's going to bring grief / depression. And then we have church folk will say, you should live and shall not die. But we all know we're all going to die one day, but nobody's ready to die. And some are. Some people come to a place, they're at peace with life. They say, I want to go, I don't want to do this no more. I just want to be with God. And that's all acceptable.
Right.
But then there are those that are not quite there yet. Then the next one. Anger. It's also normal to feel anger in times of grief. So when I see a person, movement is different with a unannounced, unpredictable anger issue. Or they are saying things that they normally wouldn't say. Lashing out, real frigid. That's a sign of that person in grief. Instead of me taking it personal,
Right.
I should find a way to help that person. How many know retirement can be a grieving process? I mean, when first time I retired from the company I was working for years ago, I woke up that morning and I was just crying. Now, I wanted to retire, but then when I retired, I did retire, I started crying like, oh God, I ain't got no more money. I had money. That guy should have retired. But that time came, and I'm saying a lot of times we all rejoice about this retirement. Mother is going to retire this coming Friday. That's going to be a process she's going to go through. You got to be home every day with Dad and Nova.
And this is the thing, mother is the busy bee.
Yeah.
She's a busy bee. She was one of those people who went to work for real. She clocked in when she didn't have to clock in.
Yeah.
So she's used to being on the go, go, go. And to go from that, I can imagine her and Daddy gonna both probably get utility belts, and they're probably gonna build this side of Columbus up on, in a couple of months.
Come be in my commercial kitchen.
So she's gonna have to find something to occupy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can find herself in a state of depression.
It's
in
a
state
joy,
of
but
feeling
at the same
useless or
Yeah.
a point. Because she's a manager. She's not just go to work,
Yeah.
but she was a
Yeah.
person of authority.
Yeah.
And now she only can boss Dad. Dad, look, be okay. She's in the process.
You can be in church all the time now.
Yeah.
The next one. Depression and loneliness. This is the jump of emotion that usually accompanies the grieving process, can typically lead to a feeling of depression, isolation, and anxiety. And I see it all the time among believers, and especially among church members. I see it a lot of times, the depression come on. I see the isolation when they start being distant from the church. And when someone don't come to church for a while, and they do come, don't ask that question, where you been? Just say, good to see you. Embrace the person.
Love.
Because what got them not coming is something related to the grieving. You understand what I'm saying? So we should encourage each other. But how many, sometimes it takes all you got to get up to come to church. It's like going to a job. If you're going to a state of depression, it takes a lot to go to that job. It takes a lot to go to school. Sometimes our kids are facing depression. And instead of us trying to figure out what they're going on, you just take the parental role of discipline when you should hit a matter.
Or also, too, when you recognize it, like I used to go to JR's house, he'd probably talk about that. I used to go to his house, and I would get there, and all the blinds, it's just pitch black in the house in the middle of the day, 12 o'clock. And so I would go and say, "Oh, it's just so nice outside," and I just start opening blinds. And he was acting like a vampire. "Ah, wait, what are you doing all that light?" You know, he didn't want the light in. He was comfortable in the dark. And so sometimes you just have to recognize it without stating it and help a person to come to a place of just a more excellent way, like sunshine. Or I would say the kids they need some sun on them. They're gonna get pale. Just little things like
Yeah.
that. And so
Gesture.
now I think I went to the house not that long ago, about over a week ago. I came in and the blinds were open.
Mm.
And so it's just little things like that that you can see people coming out of a stage or a moment or place.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to recognize that. And although we see those stages, like I said, they're valleys and they're hills, grieving, and it's like the waves of an ocean. They come and they go. High tide come and they go. But you have to recognize it when they're in those tides of in or out or up or down, and just help the person in those moments of those differences.
And the next one of the 7 is the upward turn. This humans by nature crave contact, connection, support. You may want to engage with your friends and family again. So there come a time where you was distant and you didn't want company. You didn't want to be around people. Then that's the upward turn. You start want to migrate again. You start want to reconnect with people. The question is, how do you do that? It's all in time. Everything in life is a process. So when you have had a major or any type of significant loss, it takes a process on the upward turn. Now, upward turn don't mean you're going to stay upward turn, because remember, these are cycles. Remember, the grieving never stops. You just adapt to be different. Because again, the reason we don't do funerals at the church, because if you bring the body up in the church, and the people that had come to the funeral, especially the family, they don't want to come to church no more for a while, because they said my mama, my daddy died there. All they remember is that casket being there. You don't see it because it's not your family situation, but that's all they see. So they step back for a season. And that's why it's important to understand that I encourage people to let the funeral home use their facilities for your family and loved ones. That way you won't have a setback. Okay?
In that area.
In that area. Next, we're almost done. Reconstruction. Read, please.
It says this is the stage about realizing that you can't change the circumstances, but you can alter your perspective and your perception and your behavior.
Yeah. Reconstruction. That's that stage you realize that you can't change what has happened. Eonte cannot change what has happened. Can't change what happened to that individual. You can't change that tragedy. You can't change it. I had a patient, their son, they visited for a while ago. They said be back in that Sunday. His son was 5 years old in the front yard playing and in a bad neighborhood, and someone shot him. Not intending to shoot him, but they shot the young kid, and the kid died. The father has, up to this day, and he's gotten better, felt as though it was his fault. He said, if I had only been here, I could have protected my son. I could have took the bullet. If I only been here, my mom would have got consumed in the fire. Because first, the son, not long after his mother. 2 tragedies. And trying to say, if I had been in place, it would never happen to them.
Right.
And that's the thing about life. You can't predict what's going to happen to people. The only thing you can do is say, I got to accept that what has happened, and it's all going to work out for the good.
Right. The reconstruction, and I'll use Eonte in that example, with him and his tragedy. Part of his reconstruction, I'm sure, is the mentoring of young boys.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
I also use my pains and my losses in my reconstruction to help others. And this is the positive side of grief that you can take, the hurt, the pains, and all the things that we've gone through. And we can use it for the good of mankind.
Yeah.
We don't have to hurt and harm each other. We can take the bad that has happened in our lives, because we all have experienced the bad. And now I take that, the reconstruction is now, I take what the enemy meant for evil. I take what the enemy thought was going to be my breaking, that was
Yeah.
going to tear me down, that was going to wash me away. And now I use it for the good of mankind. I use my hurt,
Mm.
the pain of child abuse. I take all of those things now to protect other children. I take my hurt of domestic violence, and now I recognize it in other women, and I help them. I give them words of encouragement on how to protect themselves, guard themselves, or get out. We can take the loss of my sister, the loss of my father. I tell family, be family. Because you just never know when the last time you're going to be able to be family. Let the mediocre things, the things that don't matter, don't amount to a hill of beans.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when I think of my sister and I think of my father, very rarely do I think of the bad things. And when I do, I make excuses for him. I say, well, you know what? He did the best he could. I only want to know the good about him now. I only want to know the good as him as a father. I very rarely do I ever focus on the bad. And when I do, it's a thing, oh, you know what? He was just idiot. That's what at the end of the day, my heart loves him. And I wish I had understood this when he was here, that it just doesn't matter. Once it's gone, it just doesn't matter. Let me have my time now. Family, friends, have your time now, because tomorrow is not promised to us.
Before we read the last one, I'm gonna say to Brother Deontay. Deontay. The reconstruction, does that make sense to you? Have you started that process? Has that process started? Has this been a blessing to you today? But I want to say this to you. It's going to be even more prevalent in days to come, because God has set us up to be at the right place at the right time to help us on our journey. And you're on a journey, sir. And on that journey, it has been sometimes complex. It's been challenging. And sometimes family didn't understand your movement. But I believe after today, those that did not understand, you understand where you were. And then being able to say, you know what? If I could have changed that, I would have. But now that I know I can't, I'm going to accept that. Okay? And this is the last one for you, sir. This is acceptance and hope. This is when you learn to be grateful for what was, the years you spent with someone, but accept that it is no longer. It took years for me to come to that conclusion about my mom, because she was my heart. And I realized that in acceptance means I accepted reality. I didn't have any guilt about my mom's, because I was very respectful. But then I did have regrets because I didn't have the strength.
He didn't have the strength to
Yeah.
take her back and forth to the hospital in her weak
Yeah.
moments. But I was his best friend.
Yeah. You did.
And I had no problem with it.
Mhm.
I slept at the foot of her bed at the hospital when she was in her sick moments. And I knew he didn't have that strength. That's the thing. We got to be able to bear one another's burdens.
Yeah.
And even at the time, he wasn't my husband, but he was my best friend.
Yeah.
I could see the hurt and the pain, and I was able to step in and help him in a situation, in a place where he wasn't able to. And it's all good.
Yeah.
It really is all good, because at the end of the day, I still came back and reported to him everything about his mother, and and his hand of reach to her was through me.
Yeah.
And it's really just all good. Yeah.
And I remember it so vividly. The last time I went to the doctor with her, and talked about the cancer. I said to myself, I can't do this. This is why I couldn't. So financially, taking care of her was not a problem. It's my way of just coping. If I pay for this, if I pay for that, if I put on my personal payroll, that would be my way of giving, because she gave so much to me. It's just recently, I was traveling to Montgomery. pulled my car over. I said, Mom, I miss you so. I hate that I didn't do certain things. But it wasn't guilt. It was just the regret. Wish I had taken to the doctor more. Wish I had,
Can I say this?
yeah.
Sometimes we are in a place down the road that we aren't able to be in at the time.
Yeah. But I can do it now.
You now,
Yeah.
where you are, could have done that. But that's where we have to recognize that it's just okay. That wasn't your strength then. And it's okay. That's why you don't have to feel the guilt of that. And your mother, from what she said to me, her thing was take care of my baby.
Yeah.
That was her words to me. Take care of him. And mothers, parents, they have insight. And so you don't have to carry that burden. You are a different man, and your strength is different now than then. So I think that that's something else. We carry one another burdens. Recognize the strength and the weaknesses. This is down the road. They'll be able to help somebody. You helping us now. You're helping us all now. So we thank God for you. And your mom is, I'm sure, the fruit of what she wanted out of you is there and heavy. It's all good.
So let's again stand to your feet, have a corporate prayer. And maybe, just maybe, somebody is finding your way, reconnecting, connecting your dots of your grief, and being able to say, God, I know you're able to do exceedingly and above what I can think or ask. In my weakest moment, you're my strength. When I'm broken, you're my healer. Can't hear, you hear for me. And when we can't see, you see for us. So this audience of people that are in this assembly, and those individuals that are following us by way of live stream, I pray that you would just saturate all of us in the drownness of your love. Help us to be discerning, or better yet, more discerning, for the need of someone else. And in our moment of grief, in our moment of sadness, in our moments of just don't know what to do, we just know that you will use us for someone else's benefit. So let it be less of us and more of you. None of us and all of you. I pray a special prayer for Dante, that this service was not just a place of comment, but a place he will remember where his healing of his journey has begun. And that all that he has need of will be transferred to him now. And I pray that from the crown of this man's head to the sole of his feet, you would just take him deep inside your covering. I pray for those challenging relationships. I pray for those unfortunate touching or mistreatment to the individual, that they'll be able to come out of the darkness, come out of that cave and see themselves in the light of your glory. We ask you, God, to remove religion from us, but put your love and care in our hearts, that we'll be our brother's keepers, that we'll help each other. Don't take each other for granted. Just know that in our grief, in our feelings, our emotion, we are called to extend ourselves to be our brother's keeper. So I sanction keepers today. I sanction believers to go out their own personal circles and join force with someone else. We give you praise, give you glory. In Jesus' name.